Hey, how's it going? My name's Ashley Rose, but of course, as you know, you can call me Ash. This channel and me and everything here is sponsored by Curse Cosmetics. Get all your cosmetic needs. Use my handle, A Rose Distortion, my socials. Get 10% off. They do makeup for like Black Veil Brides, Motionless in White, all those great bands. I am actually here with former champion Steve Maclin, Mr. Tag'em and Bag'em. How you been doing, Steve? How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, absolutely. I'm well. I've seen you wrestle multiple
Mhm.
times. Uh, I've seen you at Revolver, and I've
Mhm.
seen you, of course, at TNA Wrestling. So before we get started, of course, I want everyone to know you look up on the screen right here where my hand is, there's going to be a bar. Scan it. It's a QR code. Well, not really a bar, but it's a QR code. You don't want to miss out on the action. You can stream TNA Wrestling anytime, anywhere with TNA Plus, their app. And of course, you get access to live events, matches from the Asylum era, matches from when they were on Spike TV. Well, yeah, Spike TV at the time. Your
Mhm.
favorite stars. And of course, subscribe now. You can experience the best of TNA wrestling and you get to see Steve there.
That you do. That's one good thing about the TNA Plus app too, is going back and watching all the old stuff, which is kind of I tend to do that during cardio because I grew up in the Spike era, so it's fun to like go back and see the things that I grew up watching with AJ, Joe, Frankie Kazarian, EY starting out. It's fun to go back and watch all those things, and the library is just it's endless.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, we've got some upcoming events too. So check that
Yeah,
out.
we're
Go
at
ahead.
Full Sail this Thursday. So we got Full Sail live this Thursday for TNA live on Access TV and also on the TNA Plus app, which is a full circle moment for me just for my time in NXT. And now here we are back at Full Sail. So it's kind of cool, especially with the working relationship that WWE and TNA have now.
Yeah, I was actually just going to get into that. So,
Yeah.
how does it feel to like be back at Full Sail, your old stomping grounds? For people that aren't familiar with your career, you were
Mhm.
in NXT, you were in a tag team, and now you are, I mean, you're a headliner, you're a solo
Mhm.
performer now, and go right
Yeah.
ahead. What's it like, man?
It's weird because a bunch of us that have been in the system that were in the NXT developmental system at that time, and it was just a different era. We've all kind of been chatting like, this is going to be kind of weird to go back, and we've got the email for our itinerary, and like everything's set up pretty much almost the same when we were in NXT. So it's just like it's gonna be kind of weird, a different company, but in the same building. We just all were in at the same time, and it's just it's a good full circle moment. And for me to debut on television there in NXT, it's literally a full circle moment. I'm excited to be back.
People are probably not too familiar with your NXT career, and I'm glad you brought that up because I was actually going to ask you, what the similarities were. I know you're not quite back there yet, but as far as getting you prepared to arrive back, it's definitely got to be an interesting feel. I'm sure you're excited. And, I'm very excited to those fans in NXT and, of course, the TNA wrestling fans. There's a lot of similarities in the aspect of
Mhm.
both. So I think it's going to go over pretty well. And I think they're going to be as excited to see what you've been up to if they haven't been keeping up with you at TNA.
Yeah, and from my time being in the Forgotten Sons, and even just developmental, as in general, of just going out and working with Corbin, working with Samoa Joe, Shinsuke Nakamura, like during my time there on television, I got to work with a lot of good names and learn from a lot by just watching too and standing by. So just to go back and have that full circle moment, and now representing TNA, it's going to be pretty cool to go out as Bulletproof Steve Maclin and kind of show the world, like, all right, this is what I was always envisioned in my own head, but it took this time to get here, and things happen for a reason, and those one of those lessons too. So it builds to this moment. It makes it mean more.
Now that, we have these crossovers happening, and
Mhm.
I always ask the community for questions because I always say community is important,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to TNA. Impact before, now we're back at TNA for those who don't know or they're not sure. What they wanted to know, and I want to know, more or less what dream matches do you have since they are, mixing talent back and forth.
Dream matches are endless. I can name the ones that I've done in interviews where I've just said it's either AJ or even Drew McIntyre, just because of their time period in TNA and the history that they have with it. But then also recently I tweeted at Sheamus because somebody was like, "This would be a dream match of mine." I'm like, "That's a dream match of mine too," because Sheamus was very good to me back then, and my time in WWE, and just he was a mentor and didn't have to be. And it's just they're endless. And a Chad Gable would be somebody to cross the line that I would love to work with again for my time of we both came up at the same time. And yeah, it's just there's so many different dream matchups, but I think AJ would be on the top of that list just because of the history of him being the guy in TNA for so long, and that'd be something I think pretty cool to do.
I can see you going at it with AJ, and I think that'll be pretty cool. It's
That would
something
be
I'd be
fun.
interested in. I definitely can see you facing Drew. Drew's a phenomenal performer. He's done some stuff in TNA as well, and then
Mhm.
he made his way back. He went through NXT, and then he, of course, went back to the main roster at that point.
Yeah, just for even the crossovers, and then just for the talent now that are leaving TNA, like with Jordan Grace going there and flourishing now in NXT. And if you watch last night, Moose on there, it's just the possibilities are there. And this working relationship with WWE has opened so many more eyes to the new rebrand of TNA from its Impact days to now TNA for the past over a year. Almost, yeah, we're over a year on the rebrand, but it's just it's awesome. It's an awesome time for wrestling fans, but it's also an awesome time for professional wrestlers as well.
I will say this. I remember when you won the world title for Impact, now that we're TNA, you had one of the best promos I had seen after you won that title.
Thank you.
And I was incredibly blown away. And I even tweeted about it. And I was like, this is like one of the most amazing promos I've seen,
Well,
which
thank you.
is came out, you're bloody, and you were saying that this is that basically that this was yours. It was your blood. It was your time. It was your title. And it was one of the most fantastic promos I had seen come out of TNA in a very long time. Not that the other ones are good. EY does some amazing stuff too.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just it's finding your that's the one benefit of TNA, and a lot of people don't realize like you can go there to grow or you can just go there to just kind of fizzle out. It's a place that's growing to be on the top brands because you have WWE, you have AEW, you have TNA, you have New Japan, there's so many places to work for talent now, and it's just so many places for opportunity, and you got to make the most of it as a talent. And that's the one thing I did since the day of walking through the doors at then Impact, but now TNA was watch just kind of see everybody around me in the roster that I have and like what could I do different than everybody else that can stand out more? What can I try to do and what's my strengths, what's my weaknesses, and trying to find those different avenues. And that's I've been just trying to grow as a character. And my vignette that we got to shoot that was 6.5 minutes long for television with me and EY to kind of show the world my side of who I am and my story. And it's very hard to articulate sometimes in words, and you kind of have to show visually. And that was a benefit and a great opportunity I was given. So I took the most of it to just kind of put myself out there a little bit and open the mind towards mental health in general for veterans, but also just mental health as an awareness in general. So it's just been fun to just kind of grow as a character too.
You are a veteran. I was actually going to bring that up too. Thank you, of course, for your service. Uh, as far as, your military background, has it influenced, perhaps any type of style, your mindset as a competitor in pro wrestling?
If anything, it's just helped me more behind the scenes. Like as a competitor, I'm very much how I've always been my whole life. I'm very just straightforward. I'm stubborn. I'm going to give 110% no matter what I do and give it my all. But I think behind the scenes of more the patient side of and being tactful of how I speak and say things to the office, like that's kind of where I'm at because there's a lot of similarities between pro wrestling and the military. People don't realize the hurry up and wait game is very much the same in the military as is in pro wrestling. And it's pretty much it's like you're in the military for going to the field, you're staging your gear at 5 a.m. You're not going to the field till 10 a.m., but you've been out there all day kind of just waiting around, even though you're ready. It's the same in wrestling. You're showing up to the building at 1 o'clock, waiting to shoot a pre-tape, which takes 2, 3 hours until somebody says it finally comes and gets you, or then you're then going to do your match and things constantly change on times. Just everything's always ever changing. So it's very good behind the scenes. But it's helped me as a character kind of show the world who I am as well because it's a part of me. And I took my military experience and I also kind of molded it with my love for comic books of the Punisher and Captain America and taking those characters and how can I pull from this and make it me and turn my dial up to 11 and just still be me as a personality rather than just a gimmick.
Are you excited for the Punisher coming back?
I am very much so. I am John Brententhal nails it. I love it. And it's just crazy how much that is the more realistic character that you want it to be and not so very much a hokey, and it's very much how I approach things as being a military vet. I really never try to say it in promos or just put it out there. I don't want to be the hacksaw Jim Duggan or the Hulk Hogan waving the red, white, and blue, because that's not like it. That's not never really been. It used to be back in the day, but not anymore. Most military guys just want to be left alone or try to just do a 9 to 5 and try to live life kind of thing. So I try to be as real as I can with who I am as a veteran, but then also towards the veteran community too.
Community, they did have a question,
Mm.
and I, of course, I hope you don't mind. It's about you
No.
and Deonna, your
Mhm.
wife, one of the best technical wrestlers in the world. Care what anyone says, I think she is one of the best technical wrestlers. The
I
version
don't disagree with you on that.
two of the questions were, how do you both balance your careers and support each other at the same time? She once was in TNA. She was a Knockouts champion a few times, and she
Mhm.
is now in a different brand. And you're here as a former champion. So, how do you support each other? How do you balance each other out?
The same as when we were traveling together. Now, if we're not traveling together, we just figure out where are we putting the dogs tonight when we're not home. Is my parents coming down to watch them, or are we putting them at the sitter? And we're just supportive since day one when we met. Like I told her I knew I was going to marry her the day we just started talking, and the day I kissed her, like I was like, "Yep, yeah, I am all yours." So it's just you won. I said I took no, did not take no for an answer anytime, like for in a good way, if that makes sense. But we balance out just by support for each other, just by being there, and we talk to each other when something's on our mind or bothering us or something good happens. We're always there for each other. And she's in Phoenix tonight, and she gets back tomorrow, and she's debating whether she's taking a red eye just so she can come to TV tomorrow with my family while I wrestle at Full Sail. So it's just we make things work, and that's just what you do in a relationship. You make it work. You're a team, and for us, just it's awesome. Life's awesome. It's we live the pro wrestling dream. We come home and we are big kids that play in our underwear every day.
Another question was, what was y'all's go-to meal, whether it be fast food, going out
Ooh.
to dinner?
Lately, if it's like a cheat meal, it's Culver's. It's jumped on my burger list of that and a burger is a shake, and she loves the cheese curds and a burger there, the chicken fingers. Um, but for if we're gonna go out to eat, we're going to a good steakhouse. Krishner's here in Orlando is very, very high end, very good food. You're getting your money's worth when you are going there, and it's like they treat you like you're a king.
So another question, off topic. I don't want
Mhm.
to make this all about you and Deanna or Deanna
Oh, it's
because she's
okay.
not there. As much as I love her, I think she's so, like I said, a great technical wrestler. I love technical wrestling, so
Mhm.
that's always part of my heart. Uh, you being a former champion, are we going to see you perhaps compete and become a two-time TNA champion?
Well, that's the goal. That's the plan. If you're not in this business, and I say it all the time, if you're not in this business to win the world title, then what are you trying to do? That means you're the best. And that's what you should strive to want to be. And I feel I've always kind of, no matter what my time with TNA, I've always been a focal point, whether I was the champion or not, or I'm always just involved in the title, whether it's I'm on the actual show or not, my name is mentioned. No matter what, I'm always a figure that's put out there, whether it's the top of the mid card or the high end card. But I don't really feel there is a mid card or in TNA. There's always been that weird mix in TNA where everybody just has a place, everybody has their moments. So when you do tune into TNA, you watch whatever you want to watch on a pro wrestling show, and that's the one good thing about TNA. They've taken care of me in that way. But yeah, the goal is to get back to the world title. If you're not trying to be champion, I don't know what you're doing, but me and you, I got some things to figure out, obviously, with the Northern Armory going on. So we're trying to figure out that and whether we're going towards tag gold or not, because I would love to wrestle the Hardys for the tag titles. That'd be something on my bucket list to knock off and become a tag team champion with EY, and also to face the Hardy Boys would be amazing.
Is there any wrestler from any era, and I'm talking about any era, that you would like to face that's in their prime? I know it's a common question, but people want to know that sort of thing.
I always answer with Roddy Piper, just because I grew up on Roddy Piper with my grandmother. That's how I was introduced to wrestling, and then Ultimate Warrior jumped on the screen, and that became my guy because I'm like, what is this? But Roddy Piper was the guy that my grandmother I just showed me, and I was like, I love pro wrestling. What is this? And the earliest memories of him and Brett Piper and friggin' Mr. T back in the like just I grew up on Roddy Piper with my grandmother. She was a big mark for him. So
Now, horror. wrestling, video games, they all overlap in comics, as we know. Are you a fan of any particular type of genre film? Anything in that genre?
Uh, Horror films. So I grew up on Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, the Scream series. I loved growing up. I love Return of Living, like any zombie movie. Return of Living Dead 2 is one of my favorite movies out of horror. Video games. I like I mentioned to you earlier. I saw the Umbrella Rug, and I
Yeah,
get told all the time. People say I should play Chris Redfield in a movie, which would be really cool if Capcom ever did that.
I think I saw that on Twitter.
Yeah, that would be amazing if that could possibly happen. But yeah, I'm a big nerd outside of wrestling. I play video games. We were just playing 64 last night. I was playing NFL Blitz and I was playing a little bit of No Mercy. But most of the time, I'm just reading comic books. If you can see anything on the back wall here, it's like we got all my books of the hardcovers here. I
I'm a
just got
big
done
comic book
rereading
reader.
Ronin. I don't know if you read the Ninja Turtles Ronin comic at all, but
No, I haven't. But the artwork
it's
is amazing on it.
yes. I'll pull it up for you. Sorry, you're kind of looking at my butt. Uh, where are we at? No, that's okay, girl. This I fully recommend as a read. I love reading on the airplanes if it is a comic book. Just the story, just I try to always relate everything in wrestling to comic books, so comic books have become one of my best friends.
I'm a big comic book reader. Like,
So,
genuinely, I am. So I understand. Uh, I mean, I've read everything as far as on different brands, whether it be like independent, DC, Marvel. So anyone in particular besides the Punisher? I know you love the Punisher.
yes, well, it's very relatable too. So
Mm.
it's one of those characters that is just there's so many different stories that you can go with. Like even the Punisher Warzone movie, I thought was perfectly violent for what it needed to be out of the comics, but just didn't hit right, obviously. And then even Thomas Jane when he was playing Punisher, I thought that was a good role. I love that movie, especially John Travolta as the bad guy. You never really saw Travolta in that role other than Face Off. But yeah, just I don't know. Like I said, Brententhal's killing it, and it's more realistic and more of just the Shakespeare behind it. It makes you invest in the characters, and that's also what the Daredevil show brought him in as, and made you
Yeah.
want to actually see more of him. And now to have Daredevil Born Again coming, it's just I'm pumped for Marvel actually getting better again.
Yeah. It's been a little,
It was shaky. Some of the shows
yeah.
were a little too much, and I'm just like, just stick to what you're good at, and just get me to buy my ticket. I still got to go see Captain America. I almost got to go on Valentine's Day, but that was a no.
Oh man, I do want to see the new Captain America though. So they're fan. I thought the first Captain America was one of the best films at the time that I had seen. I loved it. I thought it was like very. I loved like the historical aspect that they kind of put into it.
Yeah,
So
no, Winter Soldier still to me is one of the best Marvel movies they made, just for the story and how it just built and just yeah. And you already knew the reveal what it was going to be, but it just you still were. For me, I was like, oh, this is great. Like this, I'm a child watching this.
any other comics that you particularly have recently read that you like?
Um, No, nothing offhand. I just kind of always go back to my if I want to reread stuff. Like I said, I reread The Last Ronin and just so because like sometimes you miss some things or some of the artwork you don't appreciate. So I just this one was my go-to one. I randomly pick it up when either I'm going to the bathroom or I'm just sitting at the coffee table in the living room. But yeah, for the most part, no, that's kind of it. So I would say TV shows. My wife and I just got done watching Landman, which is on Paramount Plus. That was really good with Billy Bob Thornton. I don't know if you're into watching streaming shows, but
I
or
haven't
binge watching. It's a very good binge. It's a very good show.
I haven't really been watching any shows, so I don't know why, I guess necessarily because of time, but I going through to like, oh my gosh, I can't talk right. I go through the habits of binge watching everything.
Mhm.
So I understand
Yeah,
completely.
for the most part, if it's on TV, it's something just rerun. We usually play The Ranch, and that's always on in the background. Or Gilmore Girls is playing. We have our shows, or if anything, Bar Rescue will be on during the day, and just to be on for the most part. But we try to find our things, but we're always watching the same things. And if not, I'm not. If I'm not watching one of those shows, I'm watching wrestling at all times.
Fair enough. Uh, so have you played the majority of the Resident Evil franchise since you pointed out
Yes.
Umbrella, right?
Resident Evil Zero is my favorite one. I don't know if you had that when it was on GameCube. That was my favorite one just because it was different, especially with the split, like how you had to go back and forth to like solve puzzles. The remakes have been okay. I loved the second one originally, and especially the third one too, which Nemesis was I thought one of the coolest ones, and I thought it was a little too actiony for the new one. But four, I thought they killed four, which was great.
Yeah, four is my favorite one.
Is it?
Yeah, I like two as well. Uh,
Okay.
I have the original version and I also have the remake. So it's interesting as far as the control difference in it.
Yeah.
So, but two and four are my favorites.
Yeah, I remember because I was a big Resident Evil fan for two and three, and then when GameCube came out and they did four, but then they also re-released one on it, but then they made zero, but then one had like the sprinting zombies after a while. I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Any other games that you do like besides Resident Evil? Because I know you're
Uh
and
instead of
all
replaying,
time.
I just all time,
Yeah.
Halo, all the Sonic the Hedgehog, Super Mario 64, Super Mario on Nintendo, well, Super Mario World it is. I just got done beating Red Dead Redemption 2 again, which is one of my all-time favorite games. Last of Us 1 and 2, just movies, all the Uncharted games. I can keep going. I'm a
Uncharted is so good.
yeah.
It
The
is
movie
so
was
good.
awful. Movie, I just was like, you guys, you could have done so much better, Hollywood. You just typecasted. But the Uncharted games were great. What's another one? Sniper Elite 6. I just other That's another good shooting game. If anybody's into shooting games, that's one of my favorite sniping games. 4, 5, and 6 are a lot of fun. Um, of course, NCAA football came out this past year and came back out, so that's been my go-to of just sitting and picking up a game or two. But other than that, really no. Like I grew up on Sega Genesis. I have my 64 still. I have my regular PlayStation, my PlayStation 2, and then I got my PS5.
Hey, I play a lot of retro too. Uh,
Yeah. I
Sega
hate that everybody says retro. Just call it, it's not retro, it's just video games.
video games. Well,
Yeah.
I just to classify everything, they have to
My my
categorize.
favorite thing I found during COVID was on Etsy was a Sega Genesis, and they remember the little ones they came out with that only had like a few games on it, but like to give you the retro feels like $30 at like a Target or Walmart.
Yeah.
So on Etsy, I found it where it had a gig stick in it. It's all released Sega Genesis games, American or Japanese, all released on the system. So it's got every game ever made for Sega Genesis. It's one of my favorite things to have in the house out of video games.
Yeah, growing up I had I don't know if you remember, I had the Nomad.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I know it took like 20 different batteries, but and you had to plug it in the back, but I had a really bad Mortal Kombat problem. I still do.
uh,
So I had to have Genesis and I had to have a Nomad. So
okay.
that's what I grew up with.
Either way, it's whatever works for you, as long as you're happy.
Yeah, I was until it died.
That's,
But
uh,
before I let you go, is there anything you want to say as far as to your fans? Anything, anyone that's watching?
well, if you're not watching TNA, make sure you tune into TNA. See Bulletproof Steve Maclin, myself. And if you're not following me at Steve Maclin on X and also on Instagram, TNA is live this Thursday from Full Sail University on Access TV or the TNA Plus app. We have Rebellion coming up out in LA. We have El Paso coming up in a few weeks for Sacrifice. And we have Slammiversary coming up in New York, which I'm very much excited to be in the tri-state area again in my hometown area. So I'm very much looking forward to the future and then getting back to the world title like we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Steve, and thank you for everyone who's tuning in, day, night, whatever time you see this, or if you hear it on audio, we're on every single audio station. Spotify, it'll be on video as well. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you for having me.